Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen, regular meetings called to order. Please stand and we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being here tonight to our regular meeting. 1.2, our moment of silence.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we come just to say thank you. Thank you for this great country. Thank you for this great state. Thank you for this great city. We beg you, Lord, to lead us, Lord. Direct our minds as we transition this business of the people. We thank you for this city. We thank you for its progress. We thank you for its peace. We thank you for the interactions that each citizen does with one another. God, we ask you to continue to bless us, strengthen Springfield. Let Springfield be that beacon light, Lord, where people can see that we can live united, that we can live peaceful, and that we can be thankful for living in a great country. Bless us, Lord. Bless America. Most of all, bless Springfield. In your name, amen.
Amen. 1.3, the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on September 17, 2024. We have a motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Trotter. Do we have any corrections, ladies and gentlemen? No corrections to the minutes? We're ready for a vote. You're frozen.
Can I just vote?
Hold on, just a second. We're gonna see if we can get it working. Thank you, Andy. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 1.4 is our public comment period. We have 2 people signed up. I'll call by name, and you have 2 minutes when you get to the podium. Our first person that wants to speak is Miss Gloria Perry. Please come to the mic. Hello.
Hi.
I'm a resident of Canterbury Drive, and I have some concerns on the new development that's going to happen up above us. I hope someone can tell me what the restrictions are for enforcing the number of families in a single-family dwelling. I know we call a lot of houses single-family, but it doesn't happen that way. So I'd like to know what restrictions we have on that. When I see the plans for the upgrades on houses that's gonna be in this division, I'm seeing that he says there's gonna be an upgrade. So I'm asking, what types of upgrade are we gonna have, and will there be brick and stone and the board that he's talking about on just the fronts of these houses? On Shawley Drive, I believe that's the way you pronounce it, we have some of his division. I see no difference in the house plans he has for the new settlement different from those there. So I'm questioning about the upgrade part. Also, I know that we're gonna have to have more police protection. There's a lot more that they're gonna have to monitor besides the street, and that's the extra housing, the pool house, walking trails, dog parks. And does our police department have enough staff that they will be able to help us with that? I know the chief's here. I'd like to see if somebody could ask him to enlighten us.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna call on Mr. Paul Perry, if you'll come to the mic.
Name's Paul Perry, live at 2807 Canterbury Drive. I've got some concerns on the Outlook crossing. They was talking about tapping into our existing sewer lines and our existing water lines. And with that, I didn't know if they was gonna put larger lines in, and they said they wasn't at the planning commission, they was gonna leave it just the same, but I just don't know how they're gonna get so much water to 285 more houses without boosting the pressure, and will that cause us to have pressure regulators on all our houses on Canterbury? And that would be expense, quite a bit of expense for us to have to put them on there. And our sewer line was designed for our subdivision, and they're gonna tap in on pumping station 1, they're gonna pump it back to our sewer system and dump it in the manhole at the end of Canterbury. So my concern, is that gonna be an issue with it backing up into the houses or anything like that? Another thing I've got was on the planning sheet where it showed the overall open space plan, the clubhouse and the street sign, is it gonna be like it shows on the plans, like, it looks awful big, the clubhouse, compared to what the little spot it shows on the plans? Plus the entrance way, it's showing a fountain pooling over and all that. Is it just gonna be a stone wall with a name on it and that's it? Is these pictures true pictures, or are they just pictures illustrating just what it could be and not be? I noticed on Shanley Drive, the houses are 10 foot apart. Or it's 20 foot between them. And they're planning to put them 5 foot between the property lines.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was all that had signed up for the public comment period. We'll move on to our public hearing. Public hearing number 1, ordinance 24-17, a ordinance amending Title 18 of the Springfield Municipal Code relative to the water service. If you would like to speak for public hearing number 1, please come forward. You have 2 minutes to speak. Anyone like to speak? Public hearing number 1, anyone? If no one would like to speak, public hearing number 1 is closed. Public hearing number 2, ordinance 24-18, ordinance amending Title 3, Chapter 1 of the Springfield Municipal Code relative to the city court cost. If you would like to speak to public hearing number 2, please come forward. No one would like to speak to public hearing number 2. Public hearing number 2 is closed. Public hearing number 3, ordinance 24-19, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Springfield zoning ordinance related to parking requirements. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. Anyone like to speak? Public hearing number 3 is closed. We'll move on to our legislative agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I have a request.
sir.
Due to public interest, I request that we go out of order and go to 2.7, if it's possible.
2.7.
Second.
Do we need to vote? Okay. All those in favor moving 2.7 to the top of our agenda, the legislative agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Anyone opposed? Okay. We'll move to 2.7. Discuss and possible take action on resolution 24-19 on a first reading. A resolution annexing property located at Canterbury Drive and William A. Batson, owned by Billy and Jean Batson, Michael J. and Gina Zincher, Jim D. and Christy Baggett, and Reyes Construction, Inc. We have a motion made by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Do we have a second? A second by Vice Mayor Harris. Before we get started, I'm gonna call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our first specific plan district that is coming before you, so this is a lot of things that are happening here. It's an annexation request as well as the preliminary master development plan for a specific plan district and the zoning. Therefore, if you remember specific plan districts, they are their own zoning, and so it would be SP Lookout Crossing District. And so if you'll look in your packet and move on down to page 13, that's where the specific plan district information really starts. And you'll see a lot of information about the development. It's gonna be one of the more restrictive things that we've done, because there's a lot of restrictions in here, things that we don't normally see from a zoning perspective that the developer is able to do and utilize with a specific plan. So you'll see certain uses that are allowed and not allowed on page 18 of the document. If you scroll down, it's page 18 of 56. It's of the PDF. So certain uses that are allowed from a residential perspective in the residential area. Go to the next page, you'll see commercial uses that are allowed and those that are prohibited. A lot of prohibited commercial uses there. Talks about the existing site. It's a a little over 72 acres. Open space is about 23% is what they're gonna leave. About 16 and a half acres is what they're proposing to leave open space wise. You can see setbacks that are listed, units per acre, lot size restrictions, which you'd normally find in a zoning classification, parking requirements, parking design, and then architectural standards. So design guidelines, talking about what building materials can be used. And then if you scroll down, you'll see on page 23 towards the bottom, those that are not permitted. Vinyl siding is one of those that's not permitted. Split face block is not permitted. Metal siding is not permitted as a facade, and inappropriate roofs and inappropriate architectural detailing. Landscape buffer zones and tree preservation, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. It talks about signage and for the commercial area. So this does contain a mixture of single-family, residential, townhomes, and commercial up front, fronting Batson Parkway. So that's what you see in the map and the layout of the development. If you scroll down to page 27, you'll see some elevations that they show there, some character images to kind of show what an example of what would be built. The elevations are next, the character image for the commercial, and then if you go to page 30, I'll show you the road section. That's kind of what they're proposing. In this development of that open space, there's gonna be a lot of parks that are, self-contained there. They're not city parks. It's parks that are gonna be maintained by the HOA. But green space area for a quality development. Included in that, you'll see in the street section there is a bike lane, a 4-foot bike lane. That'll be part of a total of 26-foot wide right-of-way with 2 11-foot travel lanes. So with sidewalks both sides there. So from a quality perspective, and the entryway sign is on the next page there, and then the landscape buffer, and clubhouse pictures. So it's an all-encompassing development. It's the first that we've seen of this kind, and so there's a lot to it. What we're asking you to do tonight is the Planning Commission's recommendation was to approve the plan, and recommend to you all to approve the plan, contingent upon a few final items getting resolved. As you know, this is a big document, a first time that we've done it, first time that the developer and his firm have done that. So there are a few final items that, with regard to a couple things like the tree preservation plan and buffer, landscape buffers, that we need to work through. Does not have anything to do substantively with the development, the number of units, access, or anything like that. It has to do with just some minor things. So the Planning Commission recommended that you all approve that, contingent upon us working through those final items to shore them up with the developer before the final master development plan is approved.
Okay, and let's go back and answer the question about the police department that the concerned citizens have had.
Sure.
And if you want to address that.
Sure, and Mayor, I would, if it's okay with you, I'd allow Chief Head to speak to his department's capabilities to serve the
Chief Head,
area.
would you come to the mic, please?
Excuse me, while he's making his way to the mic, I will point you to the plan of services that it's towards the beginning of the document. obviously, whenever we do an annexation, there's always a plan of services, right? And what that does is establish if and how each of our departments, including the utilities, are gonna serve the development. The police department did say in the plan of service that, they will be able to respond. Additional officers and necessary equipment will be needed, as we go along. This is a 6-year build-out for, I think they're planning on 1 phase per year, and there's 6 phases to the development. So it's a 6-year build-out. So yes, as we continue to grow, as we've talked about before, we'll need, additional police officers.
Well, and also, if you were at our strategic planning, we talk about this each year for each department is going to, as we grow with population, each department's going to have more employees, more staff. And one of the things is to making sure our fire department and our police department's fully serving our citizens, whether they've been here 110 years or they just got here yesterday. Chief?
Okay, I think you said it great.
Well, I mean, I
Deserve
think that, I would invite you back in January when we have strategic planning, because that's, very important to all of us. I've had to call the police. I know when you call 911, you want somebody to respond to you.
Certainly, with specific questions about anytime we have any growth. As it stands right now, an annexation, as the property is now, yes, obviously, we can handle the annexation as it is now, but as it becomes further developed, like any other properties we are anticipating, whether it be already here or annexation, we're going to have issues, on routine, day-to-day activity. And these are conversations that the city manager and I have almost on a daily basis. We know these things are coming. We've asked for it at strategic planning. We do need more people. The police department has not added additional personnel in over 20 years. And, with the turnover that we've had the past few years, it's hard to keep staffing in place. And I don't want to carry the water for anybody else up here, but they're all experiencing the same things I am. I don't want to speak for them, but I know we're having all these issues. We'll find a way to do it, but we do need more people and more equipment.
Any questions while Chief is at the podium? Sir?
Certainly, I heard the inquiry, and I am, so far, your department has really held us down real good with the amount we have, but I know we need increases. But this is something that the board need to understand. As we grow, we have to make sure that we fund you and not try to, we can't go back because Springfield is growing. And if we want to keep our citizens safe and feeling safe, yes, we have to take care of that. So I'll agree with it,
Yes, sir.
City manager, with your magic wand, you have to do a few things there.
Mayor, if I can add.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that we've done with the police department over the last couple of years, because we haven't added net gain positions, but we've retooled some things internally. There was an administrative position that we, kind of dissolved. We've told you before, if we don't need a position, we won't refill it if it becomes vacant. And so kind of shifted that to the road, enabling some things that have happened with the new traffic unit. But 6 years from now, when this thing's built out, I think that, Mr. Hubbard, I appreciate you pointing that out. We've talked about that. As we continue to approve growth, we're gonna have to have, we've got a crime rate right now that's extraordinarily low, extremely low, and we wanna keep it that way.
Correct.
And so that's the path to success to doing that, is to make sure the police department's staffed enough to do
May I
so.
also add, and I kind of talked with Chief, over the years, the abnormal and the criminal element has been my specialty. 40 years of study, 40 years dealing with that. And I can see things brewing. And I'll have a private conversation with you like I had with the chief, but we're gonna have to really be proactive. We gotta be proactive. Our crime rate is low, but you know, there's certain elements that's sort of brewing that really could make Springfield explode. And so we have to be on top of that.
Thank you, Chief.
Hi.
Ms. Arnold?
Quick question for you.
Yes.
So if you look at the plan of service, it does say for police, an additional officer and a necessary equipment will be needed for Springfield Police Department. So if we do go ahead and vote yes on this, we are going ahead and voting yes on expanding the police department for this development.
I agree,
Like,
because
tentatively.
as soon as the FY '26 budget, if not FY '27, we'll be proposing an additional officer or two, not just based on this particular development, but to balance things out from the city as a whole.
Okay. And I just think it's really important that we are careful with our language about what might be brewing or whatever that may be, because my fear is that it will strike fear in people when we do have an unbelievably low crime rate right now. And it's wild, especially when you look at it compared to other cities that are about our size. It almost doesn't make sense as to how low our crime rate is.
Well, and I believe in the past 2 years, maybe 3 years at State of the City, we've been able to
Show a decrease.
show a decrease. We're down 42% this past year on violent crime, 42%. We turned on the TV in Nashville, and I mean, we hate to talk about it because we don't want to jinx ourselves.
I need to challenge this thing. I'm not trying to strike fear,
Sir, it's fine.
but as a leader of this town over 30-something years, I just didn't stay in the ivory tower or just stay behind this podium. I've been a street person, okay? I'm out there observing what's coming in and out of this town. I'm observing behaviors. I'm observing signs that could create situations, okay? So you're not talking to some rookie person that sits behind the ivy tower and says, whoa, no, I'm a man on the street.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this is going to be in my ward,
Yes, sir.
so I do think, first of all, that we have an obligation publicly to address these questions that have been asked tonight.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to comment. Mr. Reyes is here, or his spokesman is here, so I'm gonna ask them to come to the mic.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Let's, can we address the other questions we've had about the sewers first and the water? And then move on to that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes, sir.
By Mr. Beers.
Yeah, I'll address the question about the water first.
Yes,
I
I
think there were
object,
some-
that's not what I asked.
Oh.
Okay,
I asked for Reyes first, not second.
okay. All right. Would you like to come forward?
Good
Hi.
evening. I'm Nettie Boyle. I'm with
Just a
CSR
minute before you
Engineering.
start. I'm not objecting to this being addressed, this is just what I asked to take place.
Sure. I just wanted to go down the list.
All right, so
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Nettie Boyle with CSR Engineering, the design engineer on the development.
Uh-huh. Could you address the issues that we talked about?
they asked about the single-family dwelling. I mean, I know we're restricted as a city to say who can live in a house or how many can be in a house, and as our city manager has stated, if people are related, then you don't have a lot of ground there, but these are designed to be single-family.
Yes, sir, they are designed to be single-family residents in the front of the development. In the rear of the development, we do have attached dwellings, so some townhomes.
Okay. And then the question that was asked about the type of upgrades that are being proposed, what are these?
As far as the aesthetics of the,
Yes.
or as far as the development is concerned, as
Well,
far
the
as
aesthetics of the houses, I think, and then
So just
I
as
kinda
it,
took it, maybe the question might have been, is it gonna be cookie cutter type dwellings, or what are the proposed upgrades that are
so
taking place?
I'm sure, just as in every development, they'll have certain footprints that they have, and they'll rotate through a certain number of footprints. But the exteriors will be different, so there won't be two identical houses. The exterior, you can see in the character images, will be upgraded from your typical vinyl siding. We'll have brick, we'll have stone, we'll have hardy board. And again, the character images represent what the look that we're going for. Again, this is preliminary master development plan, so architect plans and finalized, the final development plan and construction documents have not been developed or submitted yet, so this is very preliminary. So again, we're just submitting images as what the aesthetics will look like, but we're wording the SP document so that we are holding ourselves to that standard and to those materials.
Okay, and then of course, the spacing between the houses and all that's laid out by code, is that not, or how is that, Mr. Martin?
It's in the SP document. They established the setbacks in the document. So if you go to page 21, all of the setbacks are there. You talk about lot size, and we talk about front, side, and rear setbacks. So the residential setback is 25 feet. That's fairly standard in our higher, in the, the R7 zoning classification. Side setbacks, minimum of 5 feet, rear setback 5 feet for residential and commercial. That's the way the SP works. So they can set their own setbacks. If they wanted to be 50 feet, subject to your approval, obviously. But if they wanted it to be 50 feet, it would be 50 feet. If they wanted it to, they're going with 25, which is a pretty standard number for residential frontage.
And then you may be able to address, or she can address, I didn't exactly understand the question about the entrance or the fountain, or what exactly is that going to be?
Yeah, so the fountain will be a stone fountain with a water feature on that fountain. Very, very, very similar to what is shown, but again, we don't have the final architectural documents for it, but we are going for this look and this fountain.
Okay.
An entrance monument sign.
Okay,
All right, and then I think the other question that was asked was about the water and sewer, so.
all right. Any other questions while she's at the mic?
I
Yes,
do
sir,
have
Mr. Trotter.
No, I will have some more, but we'll talk about it after the water
I'll
and sewer.
go around the room.
I
Mr.
understand
Trotter.
you said, this will be done in 6-year phase.
Yes, sir. So there are 6 phases, and each phase is predicted to take approximately a year to complete.
8 years to complete.
1 year to
1 year to
complete
complete.
each phase.
Okay, now, if this is passed, when do you propose that it will start developing? I mean,
We're
in the next year or two?
projected to start with phase 1 in the spring, summer of 2025.
2025, okay.
Okay. Mr. Hubbard, do you have questions while she's in line?
I'm really listening to the other questions. What type of material? I heard them reading about what type of material won't be there. So are these brick or what?
Yes, sir. They will have a combination, so each house will be different. So one house may have brick and hardy board, the next house may have brick and stone.
Houses that's already there, most of those are brick,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
I believe so. In the, off of
In the-
Canterbury
it's
and South
already-
Warwick, I believe so, to my knowledge.
I've always wanted to blend in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you gonna develop houses that's gonna blend in with what's already developed out there? The type of houses that's already existed out there?
Well, if you look at the character images, you'll see the look of the homes that we are going for. And that
I've
will
looked
be
at them. I just wanna make sure that we stick with that, okay? Because
That
I
we
think-
stick
I
with the
think that's-
character images.
Yes,
It's on
I
page
think
9.
that's, what's your name, ma'am? Yeah, who's been a long life resident out there. I think that's her concern. They don't wanna take away from the character of their homes, okay?
No, we don't intend to take away. We intend to build up the community and increase property values and then add to it. We only want to make the area better, to improve the area, to improve the aesthetics of the area, to just continue to improve growth and have
I'm gonna use my old Texas lingo. Those areas are considered my high dollar area, attract professional people, understand me, to really bring in a good balance to Springfield. Now, this is the way that I would wish for something like that to be developed out there on that parkway, okay? Some homes in the range of what, 400,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you know, because we have enough starter homes per se. I'm just gonna be honest with you, but I want homes that's gonna attract professional people, understand me?
Yes, I do understand.
Okay, well, that's.
Thank you,
that's
Mr.
straight
Hubbard.
from my Texas mouth.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Ms. Holloman?
No, I have no questions. I think that the packet's very thorough and it does specify the materials that can be used and it does seem that it would be appropriate, so no questions.
Ms. Arnold?
The only question I had was, I think was answered, but I know it's very preliminary. Do you have an idea of price range for the houses and the townhomes that you'd like to aim for?
Yes, they will be in the 400,000 range.
Okay, and the townhomes as well?
I'm not certain about the townhomes, Mr. Reyes, or the townhome price range.
Okay, thank you. That was the only question I had.
Mr. Gray?
As Mr. Martin has already mentioned, this is a new zoning for Springfield, and it's also a new development for Mr. Reyes. I understand the concern that the people have, but I think at the end of the day, this is gonna be beautiful and it's gonna bring a lot to Springfield. If they'll just be patient and wait, it'll be nice. It'll be something, and it'll be the first of several to come.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to the mic. I'm gonna call on Mr. Terry Beers to come to the mic. We need to talk about the water and sewer, because if we don't have water and sewer, we've got to meet the needs of the citizens that are already here.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll answer your questions or concerns you had on the water first. There was a new 12-inch water line that was installed on the new extension there on Batson. That 12-inch water line is going to connect back through to this subdivision. We looked at the hydraulics of that. You were concerned about too much pressure. I think that's what you were saying, and pressure reducing valves. It'll be on the same pressure. The real benefit with this, even this subdivision coming in, your fire protection is almost going to double in that subdivision. It's going to go up, Chief, dramatically when the connection to that line. I don't think you'll have any concerns with your water there. On the wastewater, I want to say about 10 years ago, we put sanitary sewer system in that subdivision, if I remember correctly, but this particular subdivision, it's going to bypass that, and it's going to go into another line that was laid years ago for a couple of stations along Highway 41. So it won't tie in directly what's feeding to you. It'll bypass that section and go on to another line. We looked at that extensively. That's the last thing we want is overflows or anything to that. But we did take a look at that, and it will handle that type of capacity without affecting that subdivision.
That's a good question, because we
We don't want any overflow.
we don't want any overflow. While he's at the mic, anyone have a question? Any questions? No questions on the water and sewer. Thank you. I'm gonna call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Bowl, I have a question, if you don't mind coming back to the mic. The setbacks, just to make sure we all understand that issue. So the minimum rear setback in the, that's listed in the plan is 5 feet. In looking at the preliminary master plan, I don't see many of those that are actually 5 feet. I think there's a couple of corner lots. Am I correct in what?
That's correct.
What's the standard rear setback gonna be for your single-family lots?
It'll probably be closer to 20 feet, 15 or 20
That's
feet.
the way it looks on the plan. And for the board members, if you go to page 45 of the document, I'll show you what we're looking at. So that's a concept layout there of the development. And so if you just look at, just pick a lot right there off that first road, say lot 265 is a great example. So if you look at the top of the page and you come in the development, take that first right, lot 265, everybody see where we're talking about. You can see that shaded area is the building envelope, And the non-shaded area, the white area to either side of that is going to be the yard. And so you can see that that's much larger than 5 foot, a rear yard setback. Where that's going to really come into play is if you go to the end of that, end of Sibley Lane there, one street over, and go to lot 123, you'll see the corner of that building lot backing up to lot 113. That's where that rear setback, if I'm correct, is really going to become an issue and where it needed to be, where it's, but most of the lots on here in the concept are a lot, there's a lot great. We're not gonna have houses sitting, the rears of the houses sitting 10 feet apart all the way through the development. That's not the way that is proposed to go, if
That's
am I correct?
Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
Yes.
Sir?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, this is
Mr.
beautiful. I mean, I like the design, I really do. I just wanna be sure if you think.
Miss Melissa got you the pictures, then. You've seen them right
Yeah,
there, okay, good. Mr. Harris?
Some questions that I have, and since I have been on this board, you know, we're faced with growth, and growth is what we want. We also, you know, we need to be concerned with our current residents and their concerns that they have. One that's been raised to me, and I'm thinking from what Mr. Martin has told me, this problem is, or this has been worked out, the creek that flows through this piece of property. There had been some concerns that some of the creek may be destroyed or some of the creek may be affected, but I think they've come to an agreement that that's not going to be with water.
No,
and
we're
sewer.
preserving the creek. We have an average of 30-foot buffer on each side of the creek.
So the creek's not going to be affected.
No, just where the roads will cross, where utilities will cross, and they'll be strategically construction will be very careful in how they cross the creeks. And again, all that has to go through Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for permitting and the method in which we're crossing the creeks.
Another thing that we have been faced with, and we looked at this probably a couple of years ago, is the size of our streets. And Mr. Martin's already discussed tonight, I think there's 26 feet, is that correct?
Yes.
And 4 feet of that is bike lane.
That's correct.
And then one of the problems that we run into is our emergency vehicle responding and the size of the streets that we have. You know, I had an email this weekend. It seems to be every week that me personally, I don't know about the rest of the aldermen on the board, I'm getting inquiries from people that live in my ward that they're concerned about parking on the street, the number of cars that are parked on the street. I'm assuming, I think, is it two cars per development, is that right?
There,
Or garage?
in this,
Yes.
here, there are 2 parking spaces are required per unit.
Okay, and then what about on the townhouses? Are they having garages or not?
No, but there is a parking lots for the townhomes.
And there were probably 2 per townhome for that also. Okay. We looked at this, I wanna think a couple of years ago about the parking on the street. And the problem that we have with a lot of the older areas or some of the construction areas that were several years ago, that's all the parking that they have. Some of them don't have driveways, and they are limited to parking on the street. But then there are other areas that, even though the streets are narrow, they have adequate parking in their driveways, but there still seems to be quite a bit of parking on the street also. And I think as a board, that's something that we're gonna have to address going forward. We've tried to look at it in the past. In this development, would you have any objection to it being a development that had no parking on the street?
That's something we've already discussed, and we had discussed on where to handle that and whether it would be with the HOA documents or with the specific plan document. I believe like the most recent conversations we had were if we could make a wording adjustment in the specific plan document to have no parking on the street, that it could be enforced by your officers.
But it's not currently in that document.
It is not, but that's something
But
that
you
can
do not
be.
object to it being in the
We
document.
do not object. That was something we were planning on handling with the HOA documents, but thinking that the police force could enforce it with the HOA. But just from my understanding with Mr. Martin's conversation, that it does need to be added to the SB document. So it's not an objection that we have. It's just one of those final wording tweaks that we can add.
I mean, I think it's a very well put together subdivision that's being proposed to be built. I have no objection to that part of it. I just want to make sure that as a city going forward, that we have to address these problems that we have. And I think strongly this board's gonna, in the future, gonna have to start looking at certain sections of town that in certain subdivisions, we are gonna have to look at making it no parking on the street.
Yes.
Because we do have areas of town that we can't do that. They have no option but to park on the street. So I guess since it's gonna be in my ward, I'll go ahead and start the ball rolling. I'm gonna make if we approve this tonight, I'm gonna make an amendment to this, that this subdivision be put in with the specific wording that there be no parking on the street in this.
Okay, he has a motion on the floor. Did you make that in a motion?
That's my motion to amend it, that it be a subdivision that has no parking on the streets.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion? We're ready for a vote.
We need to push them in.
Did they not push them in?
No.
She can't update the computer till the amendment. You push them in.
I had pushed it once. I'll push it again.
Trotter, second.
Okay,
I mean, I would like to hear if any of the rest of the board
We've
has any
asked for
discussion
discussion.
on this.
I've asked for discussion,
Okay.
and we heard no discussion. We're ready for a vote.
I'm frozen again.
She's frozen again.
But I can just tell you my vote.
What's this?
It's a yes.
Thank you.
It's a yes, I've been pushing, yeah.
Yours too?
There you go. She got it.
Okay, we're good.
I'm good.
Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Back to the main motion as amended. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I just want to clarify, now that we've amended to include a prohibition of on-street parking into the SP document, which, we understand that part, but to make sure that we still, the motion includes, if you vote to approve, that it still includes the contingencies to resolve those few minor issues that,
Yes.
that we need to work out.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Another
sir.
question, I probably missed it.
That's okay.
What's the distance gonna be between these houses? Like, in my ward now, they built some houses kinda close, and people have asked me, saying, you know, if one burn, the other one's gonna burn, because they're so close. Is there gonna be a restriction on how close they can be?
Yes, sir.
The distance between them?
So there's, the setbacks are in there. I'll try to find what page that is, what the side yard setbacks are. Again, it establishes the minimum, and it's a minimum of 5 feet, and the setback is to the property line. And then, so that would be a minimum of 10 feet apart. And looking at the concept plan, and the developer and his representatives can probably speak more to it. It looks like most of those are gonna be more than 10 feet. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure if the mayor wanted the
Yes, sir.
representative to return.
Yes,
to-
sir, I want her to return. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so we do have 5-foot setbacks, so from the property line, just as Ms. Martin spoke, that it would be a 10-foot separation. And they'll be pretty close to that. There might be an extra foot or two. And then again, depending on the shape of the lot, there could be more.
Okay. Yes, sir.
A dumb question, like, does these houses have what's called firewalls or something like that in them, you know? Since they're 10 feet is not that,
Right, but we are meeting the fire codes, with the separation. I can't speak, would Mr. Reyes be able to speak to the fire rating of the walls?
Yeah, and it's why we're using a hardy board on the side to have the 5 feet setbacks. You guys know that the hardy board, there's a kind of fire protection. So, and that's why we try to stay away from the siding on the side.
Thank you. Other questions while he's at the mic?
that's my concern, will be the rapid burning. Thank you, sir.
Good question.
So that, I guess that barrier doesn't exist now on, like there's a couple of houses on Jardale Patterson that you can almost reach out the window and touch the house next door to you. So that did, I mean, it was, when grandfather in or something, or
Probably no codes.
what was the deal?
Depends on when they were built, is what the fire code said at the time. As Mr. Reyes said, the hardy board provides is that a 1 hour or 2 hour? Do you know? A 1 hour fire, it's a 1 hour fire barrier. And so you're talking about 12-foot distance with 1 hour fire barrier on both sides. So you kind of have,
Let me just ask them a quick question.
Yes,
Yes,
about
sir.
1 hour.
The houses you're creating on John Patterson, they're the same situation, right?
He didn't build those.
The General Patterson, I believe there's 7 feet setbacks, General
It's
Patterson.
the same type of board you're talking about.
No, the one General Patterson is that siding.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the different type, it's more like cement material. Cement, yeah. It's not plastic.
Okay, that's what he's.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Other discussion?
The
Yes,
only-
ma'am.
The only thing I wanted to mention that I did really like in the plan was that we're not allowing STRs to be part of it, because I know that in larger cities, when these developments come in, they become a hotbed for people wanting to grab them and put a short-term rental into them. And I like that we're not doing that, so we're not gonna have tons of transient folks coming in, which would absolutely, you know, kind of kill the peace for folks that have been there for forever, and for people that are investing and want to live in that community as well. So I think that was very thoughtful.
Thank you for pointing it out. Other discussion? No more discussion? We're ready for a vote as amended.
Can I just say yes?
No, yours is recorded.
Oh, it
You did it.
thank you.
Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we'll go back and start at 2.1. Discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-17 on a second and final reading. Ordinance amending Title 18 of the Springfield Municipal Code relative to the water service. There's a motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Any questions on the second and final reading? No questions? We're gonna give Mr. Hubbard just a minute to get his computer. Technical
Oh, he's
problem.
good on
Are you good? Yeah. Okay. Any discussion? No discussion? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
you have to let Ms.
Lisa.
Hall record hers by voice.
Lisa.
Yes.
Tablet's going out.
Ms. Arnold, they hadn't let your computer work all night.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-18 on a second and final reading, or ordinance amending Title 3, Chapter 1 of the Springfield Municipal Codes relative to the city's court cost. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss. Any questions on the second and final reading of these court costs? No discussion, we're ready for a vote.
Yes.
Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-19 on a second and final reading. Or ordinance amending chapter 11 of the Springfield zoning ordinance relative to the parking requirements. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss. Any questions on the second and final reading? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-20 on a first reading, or ordinance amending the fiscal year 2025's annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general funds and utility funds operating budget. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Any questions? No questions on this budget amendment? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 24-17, a resolution accepting a performance bond from Root Development LLC for a continuing of the completion of the infrastructure improvements of Autumnwood Estates, Section 3. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions on this performance bond? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 24-18 on a first reading. A resolution annexing the right-of-way located at the end of William Batson Parkway Extension. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions on this? On the right-of-way? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Our administrative agenda, 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the retail electric rates of the Springfield Electric Department due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustments by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Motion made by Alderman Gregg, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Mr. Terry.
Increase of 4.8.
Wrong direction.
Who's coming?
Time of the year. Any questions? For our audience, this is a pass-through. This comes from TVA. We do not control what TVA charges. Just want to point that out for the record. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the monthly gas rates for the Springfield Gas Department. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard. I'm going to call on our new gas director, Mr. Benji Davis.
Purchase gas adjustment has an increase of 0.11%, so just a slight increase.
You do not have to follow him. Those are not rules that were made, okay? Any questions? Yes, sir.
It's been a pleasure meeting and talking to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'd like Mr. Davis to introduce himself, tell us a little about himself, where he's from and all that stuff.
Yes, sir.
From where?
I'm originally from North Carolina. Spent part of my career with Piedmont Natural Gas in Charlotte. Moved here in 2015 to take a similar position with Piedmont Natural Gas in Nashville. Married with 3 children. Happy to be here. Thanks to Ryan and Candace for entrusting me to be in the position.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Glad to have you, sir.
Any other discussion? No other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action on the easement agreement for the Ward Trace Creek Interceptor wastewater project. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Holloman. Any questions on this? No questions on the easement? We're ready for a vote. I don't know why they picked on you tonight.
I'm telling you.
Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action on a request for the approval for a tourism matching grant from the Tennessee Department of Tourism Development. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss this request. It is a matching grant. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.5, discuss and possible take action on a request of approval for a grant from the Tennessee Highway Safety Office for traffic enforcement. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.6, discuss and possible take action on a contract for license plate readers and installation with Flock Safety, Inc. of Atlanta, Georgia. Motion made by Alderman Trotter, a second by Alderman Gregg, and I'm gonna call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something that we've talked about extensively, particularly at strategic planning. This is part of our strategic plan when we talk about public safety opportunities to improve safety. We have tested, I think the last time we spoke at strategic planning or at some point earlier this year, we were testing one of these, and this is an agreement to enter into with the company to provide 6 license plate readers. Be clear for the public, this is not something that does traffic enforcement. This is not something that's gonna write tickets or, catch people speeding. This is for amber alerts. This is for stolen vehicles. This is for silver alerts. This is to help solve property crime when somebody gets a license plate number of a burglary vehicle that leaves, and then we know what direction of travel that vehicle was heading. So this is to help solve crime, to help find missing folks, to help that's not to secretly write people tickets or anything like that. So this is something that we're finally glad. I want to tell Chief Head, I appreciate what he's done, the research that he and his staff have put into vetting companies, spending time researching the issue and finding something tonight that we're proposing to you all to move forward with.
Okay, any questions?
Great
Yes, sir.
thing. It's being utilized in more cities in Middle Tennessee, and it's doing good.
And a lot of success
A lot of success.
across Middle Tennessee and across the country with these.
Very effective.
Okay. Any questions? No questions for Chief Head? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We're ready for our consent doc.
Mayor, we probably should take them individually tonight.
I was wondering if you were gonna go there. Oh, okay, well, our one consent doc, and since we can't put them all together, and Vice Mayor Harris can't ask for that, so, any questions? Motion was made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss the consent doc. Any questions on the consent doc? One item. I can't remember when we've had one item on a consent doc. No questions? We're ready for a vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Mr. Trotter, Alderman Trotter,
Yes, ma'am.
I think I'm correct. Let me make sure I'm correct. Football, Friday night, Springfield High School. Is this our last home game for the
If it's
season?
a home game, yes, ma'am, it's the last one.
And we are playing,
It's at the beach, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure this is our last Springfield home game, so I would like to invite you out.
Ask Terry, he knows everything.
I'm not gonna call on Mr. Martin. I prefer Mr. Trotter tonight. We haven't even talked to Mr. Martin tonight. He's putting his head down. I'm gonna call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin, for our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I sent you all the report yesterday, I believe. We were monitoring traffic and speed out on the new Batson Parkway extension. We had about 11,000 vehicles in the first almost 9 days that were traveling down the new extension. That exceeds what I knew that it would incrementally pick up. I didn't know that we would have that many vehicles. So that just shows that connection there between 431 and 41 is tremendously important. It also shows where the dominant roadway will be as far as a right-of-way perspective. So thanks to the police department for being out there and helping get some folks used to the four-way stop and making sure that things are going well out there. speaking of the police department traffic unit's been helping to reduce accidents. You all just approved, and thank you for doing so, a THSO grant of $80,000. That's the largest THSO grant that we've had since I've been here. I don't know if it's the largest ever. As Chief Head said, that's gonna go to DUI enforcement, traffic enforcement. As you know, our DUIs are up, our traffic accidents are up. So using some grant funding to put some additional folks on the road to keep us all safe when we're driving, keep our families safe when we're driving, because we have a lot of distracted driving, a lot of under the influence driving that is taking place. So that's a big thing. Great to have Benji Davis does exist. I know he wasn't here last month, but he does exist. So thank you for welcoming him. Also, and finally, junk collection. Public Works Department's extremely busy right now with junk collection. So that goes through the end of the month. Also, thank you to Mr. Moore for working hard on the Batson Parkway project. I told him a couple of years ago, I said, we're gonna build a road. And he oversaw that project, and it's, we cut the ribbon on that, and that's why he looks 20 years younger today than he did last month, but, because that road is finally open. That's all I have, Mayor.
He's tired of hearing those words out of your mouth for Batson extension. Yes, sir.
And thanks to modern technology and a smart assistant chief, it's Hunter's Lane we plan.
Hunter's Lane, and it is the last one
It is.
at home.
Home game, yes.
And also, I would like to say that Friday night markets have been very successful. Thank you so much for your attendance. It has been incredible, the number of tourism dollars that have been brought in. It's been so fun to talk to the people that were coming for Friday night market that were not from Robertson County. They're spending their money here, and then they're going home, and we love them to spend their money here, shop with us, and eat with us, and come back and see us, and we'll have it again next year, and it was a very big success. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.